Alright, hello, and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and former crypto billionaire Tim Draper says he's more convinced than ever that Bitcoin will reach $250,000 by the end of this year or early next year. So that's not very far away, is it? That's just around the corner. We're looking at, 6 to 9 months. So wouldn't that be nice? Every single inflation cycle has one commonality, and that's oil. Oil following through on its current downward move will be a key factor for the CPI print to roll over. And this sort of lines up with what I've been saying in the prior videos. If you go back and watch those, you'll see what I mean. I drew these two green boxes. This is when we were back up here, we'd just broken down, and I said that this will be the first area of interest, but this, if we could get down to this second green box, or even below that, but preferably just enough into this green box, should be sufficient to give the Fed enough credibility to say that it can pause rate hikes or back off or claim that it has tamed inflation, at least in the short term. And this could actually end up triggering a massive risk on rally. So it's interesting looking at the closes from Friday that we have broken below this level, so that's great. We just kind of missed out on this, but we're now coming in and getting rejected off of this level, so we really need to see this downtrend follow through. And like I said before, particularly if we can get down into this neighborhood, that will really open up the possibility that we'll get a CPI print below or significantly below what we had last month. And therefore, the Fed has a lot more credibility in deciding that it can back off and be slightly more accommodative to risk markets again. El Salvador, 38 high school students have been awarded a Bitcoin diploma. So I don't even know what to say. I'm kind of speechless. I wish I could have studied Bitcoin at school. I did chemistry and I never use it. So I never used it when I worked as a scientist either, to be fair. Anyway, I love to see this sort of thing. The awesome thing about Bitcoin is it enables you to think differently. One of the greatest things about Bitcoin is that you can only get it if you think below the surface, and that creates a whole community of people who think deeply about things. And this is a brilliant Twitter storm. It's a brilliant thread. I'm gonna go through all of this. Apparent truth: Bitcoin has no useful function. The actual truth: you think that because you assume technology has become useful in the West first and then the developing world last. But Bitcoin flips this on its head. Its benefits are being felt in the developing world first, and this is because they have a much greater requirement for a hard money. In the developed world, we have far less corruption in the government, far more stable banking systems, and although corruption exists in all banking systems everywhere around the world, the demand for being able to be banked, people underestimate. Like, we can just, in the developed world, we can just walk into a bank and fill out a few forms and then leave with an account, and I'm pretty sure these days you could possibly do it in like 15 minutes online, but that's not the case in the developing world. One of my favorite examples of this is I remember a while ago I think it was in Nigeria, they were using pay-as-you-go top-up phone cards as currency because that was way more stable than the banking system at the time. So do you remember before the contract phones and before paying a monthly fee for your SIM card or whatever else, you used to get these little pay-as-you-go, put £10 on a card, and then you go to your off license or whatever and top it up with 20 quid, and then that would transfer over to your mobile phone. They were literally using these as currency. So they knew that it could be used as money because no matter what, they were always going to at some point need to put money onto their phone. They're always going to need to top their phone credit up. So it's incredible to me that humans will always find a way around the system. They'll always find a way to transact. And at the time, phone cards and using mobile credit that could be texted between each other was a better form of money than they had available to them. That's why the majority of people were using these sorts of things. Then along comes Bitcoin, and finally they have an actual perfect form of money that they can use. It's permissionless, censorship resistant. They don't, as long as you've got a phone connected to the internet, which a lot of people have these days, we live in that world now, then you can get hold of a Bitcoin wallet and join the Bitcoin network. And especially with the development of Lightning these days, making it actually useful for micropayments, this isn't going anywhere, and it certainly is helping those in the developing world first. Apparent truth: 1,000x returns must be a Ponzi scheme. The actual truth is, in VC land, venture capital, 1,000x returns are normal. It's just the difference is in in VC, in venture capital, the institutional investors, the insiders get the 1000x return, and the public, the retail, the average Joe, only gets access post IPO after 1000x gains have already been made. And Bitcoin flips this on its head. The returns have been available to retail first and institutions last. Many institutions still can't get in because of regulatory approval, because they've got regulations and hurdles that they need to overcome. They're not just allowed to just take enormous sums of money and add Bitcoin. Even though they could physically do that, there are laws in place that prevent them from doing it. Apparent truth. Bitcoin is too volatile to be a valid asset class. Well, actual truth is that Bitcoin's risk-adjusted returns outperform every other asset class over a 4-year period. There's nothing you would have been better to hold over a 4-year period than Bitcoin. This is just the truth. What about the people that say Bitcoin's energy consumption is too high, it's bad for the environment? Well, again, if you've been watching my channel before, then you'll know the truth of this already. Bitcoin's energy use is lower than gold and fiat currency. It takes way more energy to mine gold. It takes way more energy to power banks and employ all those people and keep those skyscrapers operating 24/7. It takes way more energy to do that than it does to run the Bitcoin network. And the Bitcoin network is orders of magnitude more secure than these other two. This is the number one across all industries for proportion of renewables. And if you've watched the channel before, you'll know. Because Bitcoin incentivizes renewable energy. It incentivizes clean energy. Miners get more money in their own pocket. They get more profit margin, higher profit margin, if they use renewable energy. And increasingly, this energy comes from sources that would have otherwise been wasted, such as gas flareage, which we'll get to in a second. Apparent truth, Bitcoin will take energy away from other users, when the actual truth is Bitcoin is a non-competitive by nature. It uses power when wholesale electricity prices are low, i.e. when people aren't using the grid. And it curtails its usage when those prices rise, when everyone else is using it. Why? Well, for the same reason as above. The more energy they take from the grid, the lower their profit margin. What about Bitcoin is using flared gas, which is bad for the environment? Well, this is what I was talking about just a second ago. When methane gas goes directly into the atmosphere, it's recognized by the UNEP as our fastest accelerator of global warming. And so if you don't know what this is, when they mine gas, there's only so much that they can store. There's a certain amount of excess that they can't do anything with. And so they flare it off into the environment. They literally just set it on fire and flare it up into the environment. And this produces enormous amounts of greenhouse gases and all sorts. And that energy would be completely wasted, except now they don't waste it. Now they use it and redirect it to mine Bitcoin. And they combust that to generate electricity. This is very carbon negative for Bitcoin mining. What about this? Batteries are the solution to getting more renewable energy, not Bitcoin. Well, no, only batteries plus Bitcoin mining makes renewable expansion viable. Batteries are expensive. Bitcoin mining equals load minus balancing customers who make renewables more profitable. Not to mention, have you ever seen what those lithium mines look like? They've got all these children mining lithium for your electric cars and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of a joke, you know. Anyone that thinks slightly below the surface is going to come to these same conclusions. And lastly, bear markets come and go, attack vectors come and go, but the community continues to grow unstoppably as more people dive beyond what seems apparent into the deeper truths below the surface. We call this going down the rabbit hole. Or if you throw someone else down this rabbit hole, you might hear it referred to as orange pilling someone, giving them the orange pill. So is now a good time to start leaning in? Is now a good time to start DCAing? Well, historically, yes. We've had our RSI 200 signal a reading below 48. This has never ever happened in the past and not turned out to be a very good time to start leaning in and start accumulating. Capitulation. Plan B says, here it is. Bitcoin realized 25 billion in losses in June on chain, which is similar to November 2018, Jan 2015, September 2011, the dark blue dots. So this seems to be the right time to start leaning in. Now, zooming in a bit on the chart, you can see that we have apparently defended 20k for now. We're starting to grind back up, but we have got to be aware that there is this possible 60-day cycle low. Now, it can just go sideways into that. It could even just go up into it. Like, it can do whatever it's got to do. But most commonly, you would expect some sort of drop into this timing band, plus or minus 6 days either side. Interestingly enough, one day before this, on the 6th, is when the Grayscale ETF approval is supposed to go live. This bottom of this horizontal channel here in blue, maybe we should color code this just to make sure we're clear. Our channel in red, we don't want to see it get rejected off of that. We want to reclaim this, but there's a lot of things going on. If you see right here, we've got the bottom of this channel with this blue downward sloping line. We've got our 60-day cycle low, and then of course if we were to get rejected off of this area and come back down, you would be looking for a retest of this 20k level, and in a doomsday scenario we've got this level below, which is the 14ish k's highs from back here. So the question is, have we seen the bottom? Are we going to grind sideways and move up, or have we got one more double dip to make before we can go? Nobody really knows, but we'll certainly find out soon enough, and I do think the majority of this downside is over. So in the scheme of things, if you buy anywhere between here and 14k, then I think this is going to turn out, especially once you zoom out and look at the long-term growth, I think this is going to all turn out to be one of these generational buying opportunities that we get. So strong move up from stocks on Friday. One or two things is going to happen, isn't it? We're going to break this line and line up along, or I think what's possible is that we get a touch and roll over and form this sort of 60-day low for Bitcoin. That would come back down here somewhere, wouldn't it? 6th or 7th. So I wouldn't be surprised to see one more push down. I'm not saying we have to take this low out, but I do think that if we can touch this line and not break straight through it, then that's a nice short there to take from here down. So that's my thinking on that. Gold is hanging on. I said this before, it does look like it kind of wants to do one of these undercut of all the stops resting under here before it can goes, but maybe we can just sort of attempt to break this line. We know it's due. I've been calling for this since weeks now, weeks and weeks. I said that we would likely come up here and possibly look to crack this line. That's how this has been sitting there. So if you've been watching the videos, you'll know. But we have to be open to a sweep of this low first. I think that's at least a possibility here, rather than just go straight away. Silver, much of the same. We're hanging on in there, but are we going to need to reset a new trend line? Perhaps. I'm not going to go. What's happened here? Yeah, I'm not going to go modifying this position until it's stopped out, because it's not actually invalidated until it's stopped out. But are we going to have to look for a re-entry of some sort? Possibly. But for now we're in, so long and strong. See what the market will give. Ethereum doing much the same as Bitcoin. Big level here. We need to get back above this, and then we've got convergence of double resistance overhead. But I do think that, you know, this is so deeply oversold. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we can actually get some sort of decent summer rally coming out of here. And the dollar. What's the dollar going to do? Up or down? No one really knows. But one thing is for sure is we are getting close to violating this parabola. This is the 60-day low for Bitcoin. So the stars are sort of aligning for a breakdown around this neighborhood. Certainly if we get that could catalyze an early low for Bitcoin, or a late low depending on where it breaks down. But I don't foresee this just continuing to run forever. We've got to be getting close now, I would think. Bonds are coming off, so that's good. We want to continue to see these yields come off, really, because until the yields come off a little bit, we're not going to see this risk on rally. So I do think everything's sort of coming together. I've been saying we've got to be patient for a while, but we are getting close to the end of the patience, I think, aren't we? I mean, I've had this line drawn back for a while, and as you can see, we're getting closer and closer to this now. Only a couple more weeks, a week and a half, say. So there's some interesting stuff ahead. Definitely, just to recap, we want to see oil move down. We want to see gold look to break out of this giant wedge, and then we can get involved with silver and all the miners and take on the max leverage and stuff like that. Bitcoin, we just need to hit this cycle low, and I suspect when it does, the dollar will likely be under some pressure. So I hope you found value here today. If you did, make sure you drop a like and subscribe if you're not. Follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll be back tomorrow with more of the same. So until then, take care. All the best.